Hello, School Transportation Nation. Tony Corcoran here. Happy you made it to the podcast, brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software. Also sponsored by Cummins, powering customers through innovation and dependability. And our friends at School Radio, your choice for reliable radio communications. On the podcast today, Tracy Brown, keynote speaker at STN EXPO in Reno. Coming up, she's also leading our Transportation Directors Summit. She is talking liar, liar, pants on fire with Mr. Ryan Gray. Ryan, I'm looking forward to this conversation. Tracy sounds so interesting, body language expert. What can we expect from your chat?
Definitely a very interesting person. I think, and I ask her this in a little bit about, well, what do transportation directors, student transporters need to know about body language? And it makes a lot of sense. Everything from dealing with the students on board, your drivers, your maintenance staff, your other staff members, parents, school boards, school administrators, folks, in the other departments that you're interacting with. Understanding and knowing certain keys that might indicate that folks aren't being as truthful with you as they would like you to believe. So certainly it has a lot of impact on the day-to-day livelihoods of transportation directors. So interesting stuff coming up from her.
Yeah, not an atypical speaker either, right? Not someone probably anyone has seen in the school transportation industry. I know we got introduced to her through another source, and we thought, man, this is going to be really interesting content. And, when you book a keynote speaker, it's like long ago. But here we are. We are like coming down to the wire, less than 30 days away from STN EXPO in Reno, July 14th through the 19th. Guys, this is it. Like, if you haven't registered, now's the time. It closes this Friday, the 23rd of June. This is it. Home stretch. We're coming in. Sold out trade show. Our room block at the hotel is like 120%. It's crazy. Biggest STN Expo in terms of attendance in history. Expect just the best conference you've ever been to and magnify that by 10. Ryan and the team have done such a good job putting together a great editorial lineup. We're super excited. And, one of the things we do at STN Expo is we do our Transportation Directors Summit. And as part of that, we survey transportation directors because we really want to find out what are the real challenges that you all are facing, as well as kind of what are your procurement needs? What are the things that are most important that we should be curating content about, right? Writing stories, having sessions. And Ryan, we were looking at the survey and lo and behold, what were some of the top things that we saw?
Yeah, well, Type C or D buses leads the way, about 55 or so percent of the over 100 transportation directors that have responded so far. So the survey is still ongoing as we speak. But, really closely right behind that is electric buses. Now, we need to still do a deeper dive on the survey, but obviously STN Expo Reno out west, we have a lot of California or California-esque attendees, that are beholden to emission regulations that far exceed what EPA is pushing for the nation. Now we know that that's getting more strict. So basically diesel is getting squeezed out. Interestingly enough, talking about diesel, clean diesel is not too far behind at about 32%. But ahead of that, of course, alternative fuel, folks trying to figure out how are they going to make that business case going forward to meet all these mandates. Technology, let's not forget about technology, student tracking. We've been talking about that a lot, being one of the leaders in terms of adoption. One of those solutions that a lot of school districts are choosing or trying to get into. That actually was number 3, right behind electric buses. And, shouldn't be a surprise, onboard tablets and mobile terminals, data terminals are right behind that. Because again, the tablets, that's one of the big uses of those is student tracking, along with a lot of other things for the drivers, driver time clocks, and routing turn by turn direction. So a lot of interesting data points there to suss out, and definitely will drive a lot of conversations in Reno next month.
Yeah, some of the interesting things, like you said, with the electric buses being 41, almost 42%, I also saw EV charge management software as about 22, 23%. So I thought, man, why aren't those numbers correlating? So I think really it's coming down to people's awareness of the need for charge management software. It's almost synonymous. You can't have an electric bus without charge management software. So I'm not sure if these people already have it.
Yeah.
Maybe they've already got a charge management software and they're like, hey, I don't need it because I've already got it. But it feels like those should go together, right?
Again, and we'll have to do a deeper dive. If this survey is indicative of, a high number of California folks. Of course, California has the most experience with electric buses. You would think or hope that a lot of folks would be who are already using electric buses have already jumped on the EV charger management bandwagon, because as you mentioned, they should go hand in hand. I'm hearing they really must go hand in hand. And we've written a lot of articles about this, Tony, too. So, but there's a lot of noise out there. So maybe some folks still haven't heard the word yet, so to speak. But definitely they have an opportunity next month in Reno.
Well, no doubt. We got the Green Bus Summit, which has got just tons of content around green energy. There'll be tons of things about charge management, success stories of different types of energy, propane, EV. I know you've got a great panel talking all about this, about EV success stories, but also challenges and the trials and tribulations that people have faced, because it's not always a rosy situation, right?
Well, and it's certainly coming down more on the latter, because in talking with those panelists just this past week, a lot of talk about the infrastructure, because that's what we hear. The infrastructure. In fact, that's how I phrased it to Amy Davis, who is the president of Accelera by Cummins. Have a Q&A coming out with her in the July issue. So in a couple of weeks, look out for that. But she agreed. It's like, infrastructure is kind of the leading issue in terms of electrification. It does you no good to bring in electric school buses to win EPA awards, for example, get those buses in your lot and have no infrastructure, have no charging set up. So definitely we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about several challenges that the industry is facing as it's looking at all of these mandates, right? That's pushing zero emissions, or at least toward zero emissions. Mentioned earlier, the EPA regulations that start to go into effect next year in 24. Already hearing from folks that diesel, we're hearing officially that diesel will not cease production for a good decade or so. But that said, we're already hearing stories about the price hikes and the limited supply that's going to be available going forward. So really, as I mentioned earlier, diesel getting squeezed out of the equation. And, you look at the California and those 11 CARB states, we'll call them, that are adhering to the CARB advanced clean trucks regulations. While school buses are just kind of separate program from that, still the writing is on the wall in those states and more that diesel is just not a sustainable path going forward. So we're going to be talking about all of that. We're going to be talking about some of the battery technology in terms of especially second life battery technology, the recycling. That goes into the procurement decisions, right? Transportation directors, superintendents, they need to get the whole picture of what this means. I think we're well beyond the glory of the $5 billion over 5 years from EPA. Now, really the rubber's meeting the road on how are we going to make this happen? And again, districts are really being forced to make a decision. And, it'll be interesting. You mentioned propane earlier. Propane is the, next best option in terms of, near zero emissions. But it's not at zero, and electric's not at zero either. I mean, folks that we're talking to, they're using auxiliary fuel-fired heaters. So by definition, that's not zero emissions. Now, again, these are auxiliary. I think that the politicians, if you will, they look at it as, well, the technology is meant to be zero emissions. And so that's why so much attention, so much money is going toward electrification. But, like we were talking earlier before we started recording, Tony, a lot of the laws and mandates, regulations, they mention zero emissions. They don't say electric school buses. They say zero emissions. Right now, technically, electric buses meet that definition. But what about tomorrow? I know that, there is some work being done and on trying to get propane to zero emissions. What is the impact of potentially fuel cells down the road as maybe a supplement to electric? When you're talking about range, I don't think we're going to be seeing fuel cell school buses per se, although there is one manufacturer we've written about that's looking to unveil a prototype in the next year or so. But yeah, all this comes down to just a very interesting conversation or conversations. And on the heels of that, Tony, we have EPA, who's going to be back in Reno with us, along with the Department of Energy. And they're going to be talking about the Clean School Bus Program. So really, attendees have a lot of opportunities to get a lot of questions asked, and at least whatever answers are available at this point.
Well, we've got the leader in power solutions, Cummins, as our sponsor here on the podcast, and I want to bring you a message from them. I got a message from Cummins, powering customers through innovation and dependability. Cummins is the school bus powertrain leader with more than a century of innovation and the experience you can depend on. Cummins can meet your sustainability power needs no matter where you are on the path to zero emissions, whether it's advanced diesel and renewable fuels or battery electric or hydrogen fuel cell. Customers trust Cummins to have the right solution. With the launch of Accelera, they're accelerating to shift to zero emission vehicles by pursuing the most promising technologies, not betting on a single path, but developing an array of cutting edge solutions. Learn more at Cummins.com. That's Cummins.com. All right, guys, we got some more headlines for you. Ryan, let's talk about NHTSA. Like safety, there's some stuff happening in that space. What is kind of new on the NHTSA front?
Yeah, well, we've been reporting for a while now, coming out of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. One of the less ballyhooed provisions of that was on illegal school bus passing. Big hot button issue in the industry. And NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, is tasked in that law to basically study illegal passing. They're looking at the technology. They're looking at all the state laws, the enforcement. So, of course, video enforcement. And they're doing ramping up these studies, and they're going to be releasing a lot of that data, I heard, as early as a little bit later this year. But tied to that, a lot of folks say it's just not enough, right? So we do have a new federal legislation that's being introduced. A lot of folks will remember the name Jackie Walorski. She is the late representative of Indiana. She died tragically a year ago in a car crash. And she was a big champion of school bus safety, and especially in terms of illegal passing. Of course, back in 2018, we had that tragedy in rural Rochester County, Indiana, and that was actually Walorski's one of her areas that she served for. And we had those 3 children that were killed. A 4th was, seriously injured by that illegal passing incident. Made, a lot of news. We reported on it extensively. NTSB studied it. This new bill has been introduced in Jackie's name. So it's the Jackie Walorski Enhancing Necessary Data on Illegal School Bus Passing Act, or as the feds like to do it, they have an acronym, the END Act. And that's looking to basically take NHTSA's work to the next level. So NSTA and the industry is supporting this effort. Basically, the END Act would direct NHTSA to provide grant funds for demo projects. So they're looking to collect the number of illegal passing incidences that occur each day. And we know, right, NASDIP has its annual survey. A lot of the states have just concluded or are in the midst of performing that one-day count that goes into that report that we'll probably see a little bit later this summer. This is looking to define the traffic patterns and characteristics, time of day, weather, information on the motorists who pass, what kind of vehicles, age, those kind of demographics, and also the role of distracted driving. So NHTSA is going to, if this goes through, NHTSA would have to submit a final report to Congress on this each year. And they would also be working with our friends at the National Conference of State Legislatures. We go to them a lot. They're really keeping their thumb on the pulse of everything that state legislatures are voting on right now, and they have a whole school bus section. So it'll be very interesting to see if that does pass. Again, any additional light that we can shine on illegal passing, the better.
Absolutely. Speaking about somebody that's keeping their pulse on the industry of technologies, our friends at TransFinder, we got a message from them coming up. Guys, have you ever seen a car commercial? They're always saying that the new model is sportier, faster, better. Well, the folks at TransFinder say that's the way to look at their new and improved Service Finder solution. It has the same name, but everything about the new Service Finder is better, faster, sleeker, more intuitive. Service Finder is the next generation of fleet and asset management software. It's browser-based and will make your fleet productive and cost-effective. Service Finder reduces burdensome paperwork, tracks your costs, and will help keep you from missing critical repairs. Let's face it, buses aren't cheap. You need to keep them running efficiently and lasting longer to get the most out of your investment. To learn more about Service Finder, visit transfinder.com or email them at marketing@transfinder.com or give them a call at 800-373-3609. That's 800-373-3609. All right, we're back, Ryan. I'm getting excited for this Tracy Brown interview that you're going to be doing. I think there's so much around STN EXPO that is just got our attention. And, the sessions that are jumping out to me, I know I'm working on a future technology session, and I've got a few interesting guys on the panel with me. I've got Vivek Garg, who's the chief operating officer at Zoom, who's kind of an up and coming private fleet contractor, and they're growing. I know they won a big contract back east just recently, and very interesting being an entrepreneur, talking about how you're taking more of a forward technology approach. Going to be talking about AI, how he sees that affecting operations and interactions with parents, with his staff, dealing with challenges, maybe even optimization. We've got Antonio Civitella, who's the president and CEO of TransFinder, going to be on that panel, talking about how routing plays a big part in technology and how he kind of sees the future of that going. And then also I've got Ben Englander, who's the president at Roscoe Vision Systems. And Roscoe has been around for 100 years and family-run company. His dad, I believe, started it, Saul, and then Ben and his brother Danny have been around, and really entrepreneurial family. They started as a mirror company, have evolved into more of a vision and sensor-based company. So they've created a new product called DCAMs that they got a variance on, where the mirrors actually are cameras. So they had been very progressive about putting forward technology we had never seen before in the industry, and really kind of challenging the status quo of a mirror. It's so basic, and they're really trying to take it to the next level and talk about some of the benefits of innovations like that. Also products like Mobileye and other products that they integrate with. So it's going to be a very insightful discussion about technology from three different types of market makers. So really excited to unpack that at STN EXPO and dive deep. I know, Ryan, you're hosting a few sessions. I feel like you and I are wearing a lot of hats at STN EXPO this year.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm gonna be not wearing as many hats as I did in Indianapolis, but certainly, yeah. The session that I'm gonna be moderating is on Monday, July 17th, and I'm gonna be looking at the impact of all of this cleaning that we've seen since COVID really exploded. And we had all this ESSER money, right, that was flowing, and districts were buying up cleaning supplies and electrostatic sprayers and whatnot.
Yeah, health and wellness technologies, right? Like it came out of nowhere.
Exactly. And so we opened this discussion in TSD actually, because obviously, students, children are the most susceptible to emissions, and you look at like all the stuff in the air from all these cleaning solvents. Well, certainly when you look at students with disabilities, they're even more susceptible, right? Well, we wanted to take this session, revisit it, bring it to Reno. So we're going to be talking with Dr. Richard Cooper, who's the lead scientist for Clean Spray Technologies. He's going to be joining me again. Sandy Dillman, who's the director of transportation for Tomball ISD in the Houston area. Her neighbor, Bobby Williams, the assistant director of fleet services for Cypress Fairbanks ISD, and Charlie Vitz, formerly of IMI and Safeguard. He continues to be a consultant in the industry, and of course is one of our instructors for the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration Child Passenger Safety on School Buses seminar, that 8-hour seminar on restraint systems, child safety restraint systems. So he's going to be talking about the impact, and they're all going to be talking about the impact of all of these different cleaners and solvents and whatnot that are really meant for our home kitchens and bathrooms, maybe for use once or twice a month, maybe once a week, but that we've just been seeing used 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day on school buses. So really interesting stuff there. And I think the conversation is evolving, seeing a lot more products out there looking at UV lighting, a lot of it within air filtration systems, but also too, just, using UV from lights in school buses. And there's been a lot of talk over the pandemic about how can be dangerous. Well, technology, of course, is evolving, and there's been a lot of studies on that. So we're going to have a really good conversation, because one of the things that jumped out to me from the conversation in TSD was folks just didn't know what they didn't know. Still a lot of folks who just were operating under orders from their transportation director or from their superintendent or their school board about, you will use this and you will clean every single surface 5 times a day. And they don't know the ramifications of it. So it was a pretty eye-opening conversation in Frisco, and we'll be having the same conversation and evolving it in Reno next month.
Wonderful. All right, before we get to your conversation with Tracy Brown, we got a message from School Radio. Hey guys, is reliable radio and communications important to you? Got a message from School Radio. The laws against using cell phones while operating commercial vehicles are in place for the safety and security of both your school bus drivers and your students. Taking that risk comes with a hefty fine, penalties, and even the disqualification of the CDL of the driver. School Radio specializes in providing wide area push-to-talk, two-way radio solutions for schools and school transportation that are fully compliant with all hands-free operational laws. They offer a managed service program, which includes the device, all services, all maintenance at a fixed monthly budget point. No expense infrastructure or FCC license is required. Get a demo today by visiting school-radio.com. That's school-radio.com.
All right, Nation, we want to welcome to the podcast stage Tracy Brown, fraud-busting body language expert who will be speaking at STN EXPO Reno in July. Tracy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here, and I can't wait for Reno. It's going to be so fun.
I know, absolutely. So we're going to have you double billed in Reno, of course. So you're going to be working the Transportation Director Summit for us on July 15th. So we've got, just great subscription to that, Tracy. We've got just tons of transportation directors signed up. So we're busy kind of putting the final details on that. And then you're going to come back and be with us on Monday, July 17th for the keynote, Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire. So I mentioned that you're this body language expert, fraud buster. First of all, what do you do? What is that? And then I want to ask how you got into it.
Oh, well, my job is to help people understand what's going on that's hidden in plain sight, like what other people are thinking and feeling, and if they are telling the truth or not. So I help sales groups. I also help financial groups to make better decisions based on using all the information that's available. Because most of us we just look at or listen to the words, and there's so much more there. So we focus on, hey, what's hidden around us? How can we answer people's unspoken questions and be that far ahead of the conversation that you can actually guide and direct it towards what you want, but also know if someone's lying to you or not?
Absolutely. And it's really interesting because you do these videos on your site. So it's a bodylanguagetrainer.com. And you have all these pretty entertaining videos. You have a weekly email that you send out, and you're analyzing different things that are going on in society, in culture, right? Of course, Prince Harry and Meghan, that's,
they're keeping me in business.
I know, exactly. Keeping you in business. I don't even want to go down there, but I mean, just an example of some of the stuff where you're analyzing how folks are portraying themselves. I remember like the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. You touched on that. It was really interesting when I was flying out to our STN EXPO Indianapolis a couple weeks ago on the plane. I actually listened to a podcast. Nancy Grace had you on there talking about those quadruple murders of those college students.
Yeah. I was on with Nancy Grace a couple weeks ago. So that was like when Nancy Grace calls, you're like, all right, what do you need, Nance? Let's do it. Right. So she is super smart and she knows exactly what she's doing. She loves the drama and she loves to ratchet that up. But I got to tell you, she's the smartest person who's ever interviewed me. I mean, not to say you're not smart, but however.
Present company excluded, of course. Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Well, yeah, I guess she was the prosecutor and she's an attorney. So I guess, I'll give her that one. But, so when we're looking at body language, so how does that translate to student transportation and transportation leaders?
Well, here's the deal. Transportation folks, you got a lot going on. You have staff, which is always a problem. You have students, you have vendors, and you have a fleet that you got to manage. Okay. Oh, yeah. And the parents. Oh, and did I mention the school board? All of these factors come together to create one, I'm just going to say, firestorm every day. Right. And especially because, there's a political part to being a transportation director, right? In the form of dealing with the school board. And so it's important to understand what's real and what's not so that you can get your agenda pushed through or your budget pushed through, as the case may be. Like, do you really have the support that you think you have? There's vendor negotiations, right? Can the vendor really deliver when they say they're going to deliver? And is it going to be at the quality that you think it's going to be? Like all these things, right? Did little Johnny really get beat up on the bus, right? There's that. Like, what are the drivers telling you? There's a myriad of things that knowing the truth is going to help affect your response to the situation. And I'm sure that there are investigations going on daily with anything having to do with, it could be anything of sexual harassment on to, you name it, right? Getting to the truth in that is very, very important. There are a lot of consequences, and it's important that you know what's real. So we are going to get into all of that. We have a deep dive during the director session, and then I have a keynote that's going to be super fun, and that's on the Monday. That's for everybody. So everybody, should you choose to attend, is going to leave with tools guaranteed for you to see people differently. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to guarantee you will never see people the same way again. This is a one-way street. We are on it. Let's do it.
Wow, that sounds really interesting and exciting. And I was thinking as you were talking, so many school buses now have video cameras, right? Mm-hmm. But so a lot of times that footage can, even though, we're hearing from the transportation directors and the folks, the vendors, the folks that are using this stuff, that they see a lot more of the story of what's going on in the school bus. Still, because you need to still unpack that and talk to the driver, talk to the students, talk to the parents, talk to everybody else. So what you're saying is, I almost kind of liken it, you have to be PG here, but I call it my BS meter.
Yeah.
Where, something's not right. And yeah, you might have the video, but maybe the video only shows certain angles. Mm-hmm. And, the bus driver might be saying, I didn't hear anything. But even if you're talking to the bus driver, maybe you can pick up on something that maybe they're not telling you the exact truth.
Absolutely. Right. And that gets into alternative facts. And we're going to talk about that as well, which is really it's a very scientific term, alternative facts. And it's really the lies woven into the truth. Those are the ones that get you every time.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that we're going to learn, because the signs of them are the same. Because see, the body can't lie. Words can lie, but the body can't lie. So we're going to get into all that so that you have new tools to experience the world through.
Exactly. And I'm not even going to get into the political cycle that we're about to enter, the presidential race ramping up. But, that aside, so you just mentioned science, though, right? Mm-hmm. So tell our audience a little bit more about you. You actually, so you're trained at this and at a pretty high level, right? I mean, the FBI, I heard you've trained alongside law enforcement.
Yeah, alongside, when I go to classes, let me tell you how these are. It's always in the back of a police station somewhere. It's just like you'd see on TV. Like there's a room for about 30 to 50 people. There's a podium up front. I'm usually the only woman in there. And I'm also the only one without a gun. And every time I forget my gun. Yeah. But so I don't know if I'm in the most dangerous class or the most safe class, right? But it's right alongside our law enforcement. So these are the same tools that they're using out on the street, the same tools that they're using in investigations, both domestic and internationally. And I've taken, because I'm not cut out for law enforcement. It takes a special person to do that. The chance I've taken is to take these same tools into business. And it helps save people time, money, and energy.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get into body language and understanding and gleaning if people are telling the truth? What got you interested? Well,
I really figured out, it was pointed out to me that I'd been doing this almost my whole life. And I was in a former life, I guess, my first career, I was a professional bike racer. And this is how I would read my competition. And I would start to understand that they were broadcasting exactly what was on their mind and exactly how they were feeling and exactly what was going to happen next. And when I started to tune into their little bitty cues, I was able to react before they even knew that they were going to do anything. And that was my golden ticket to victory. Now, fast forward, and I became trained as a hypnotist and an NLP practitioner, master practitioner. And from there, I saw clients for a long time. And you'd be surprised how many people come into therapy and lie to you. Like they don't want to tell the whole story. Mm-hmm. Because let's face it, by the time you're in therapy and you signed up and you got there, you got some stuff you need to deal with. And not everyone really wants to talk about it fully, as you'd kind of guess, right? But one thing led to another, and I ended up with an invitation to train with law enforcement, and I just kind of kept walking down that path. So, yeah, that's how I ended up here talking to you, Ryan.
Very cool. And when you said you were a professional bike racer, bicycle, so more the Tour de France type bicycling that I would think of, right?
That's what I did.
Not the Mayans, not like on a motorcycle, but like you were. So I've seen some of your videos, and you shoot them while you have a GoPro or something, or you have like one of those selfie sticks.
No, I hold my video out on my hand, and I ride, or my camera out in my hand, and it's the same kind of thing as having a selfie stick. And I ride and talk, because why shoot a video when you're sitting still? There's really nothing like videos for movement. So that's what I do. And it gives me this other little added bonus that I don't have to put on makeup when I go to film a client promo video. So that's actually why I started doing it. And then I figured out like people really liked it, and it made these videos unique. So I just kept going.
Very cool. Very cool. So I wanted to ask you, it said that, because you've been involved in TV as well, and your TV career started evidently in kind of, looking at, something that a lot of folks will remember, the Aurora movie theater shooting in 2012.
That is true.
So how exactly did you get involved in that?
Well, okay, here's how it went. For one, I did not know body language experts were on TV. I had no idea at all. And I was sitting at home, and I'm in Denver, and it's not far from where this whole thing went down. And I was watching his arraignment, and I was like, oh, yeah, I know kind of what he's doing, what's on his mind. And then my phone started ringing. And it was, I think it was Fox here in Denver called me, the local Fox channel. And they said, hey, can you come down? And I said, yeah, for sure. And then my phone started ringing again, and it's radio. And that's really where it started. I did a bunch of radio interviews while I was in the green room at Fox between segments, and it just kept going and going and going that way. And then there was another murder in town, and then people just kind of found me to the point where almost every day now I'm called by the media. And, we talked about Nancy Grace, which is probably, the most notable one that I've done. But, the last election cycle I had to watch, as with the last probably 3 or 4 election cycles, I had to watch every minute of every debate and every town hall. And the reporters strike a deal with me, and they're like, we're going to call you 15 minutes afterwards for an interview. And I have to have all my notes on the debate. And it gets, I'm really happy to do it. And especially when we had like the situation like we had last time with all the yelling and screaming in that one, I had to take a mental health day the next day because I just I'm sensitive, which is why I'm good at this, but it also can impact me probably more than other people when I kind of have to do it, or I'm going to lose my promotional activity and some of the, I guess, status building stuff that I do, which is what, the media is. But, I do anything from red carpets to, lawyers call me all the time for investigations. A lot of domestic disputes about child abuse and things along those lines tend to come across my desk. So yeah, I never know what's going to happen when the phone rang. Just like when Claudia called me, I did not know what was going to happen because I had missed writing this on my calendar in the space where I needed to write it for the day. So anyway, like I said, you never know what's going to happen.
Exactly. Well, see, we're in media, we're in journalism, we're very adept at tracking folks down. But talk a little bit about too, because we were talking about TV, and you're involved with a TV show, right? Truth, Lies, Coverups. What's that about?
Truth, Lies, and Coverups. That is my TV show. That was my pandemic project because, really what I like to do is get out and be with my people and speak. And I was bouncing off the ceilings. I thought my husband was going to lock me in a padded room when everything shut down. And I had this opportunity and I was like, wow, you know what? I'm going to put together the show I've always wanted to put together. And I was able to get into, it's all about financial fraud and the lies that are always present that you just don't see, but they're hidden in plain sight. So it's more of a drama. And I have a pilot. We had a five days of shooting, and I have it's like 40 some minutes, and we may see a little bit of it in the director's summit, but I'm working on it in Hollywood. I'm signed with some producers to shop it around and help to develop it further. And big project. But the pandemic helped me. I would never have been able to do that without the pandemic because places that were shut down, hotels and bars and places like that, they were like, yeah, come on in. We're not doing anything else, right? So here I'd come with my film crew, 15 people, and we were able to do that for a day in their fantastic location. So that's how that panned out. I knew there'd be an opportunity somewhere in the pandemic, and that was one of mine.
Awesome. Well, what do they say about, in every great crisis lies a greater opportunity or something along that nature. So, it's awesome, to be able to get you to Reno next month. Really looking forward to it. All of you, if you want to learn more about Tracy, again, bodylanguagetrainer.com, certified speaking professional, 3-time U.S. collegiate cycling champion. Tracy talked a little bit about that with her cycling career. Really looking forward to meeting you in person. Finally, Tracy, we've been talking for like a year now, I think.
Year and a half, more, almost, yeah.
Maybe a year and a half, maybe. And, really looking forward to, all the tools that you're going to bring to the table for our attendees. I think it's going to be really interesting stuff and stuff that they can really use in a lot of things probably that they don't think about, because our audience gets so, into the daily grind, right? And trying to find drivers and get the service for all the kiddos. So some really important training that's at hand. So I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. And again, looking forward to seeing you next month.
We'll see you in Reno.
Thanks, Tracy.
A special thanks to Ryan, Tracy Brown for joining the podcast. Great conversation. Can't wait to hear you at STN EXPO in Reno. Guys, that's July 14th through the 19th. We are right around the corner. Our deadline to register is going to be June 23rd. Online registration's closing, so make sure you get signed up. Take advantage of all the great content. We've got 36 learning sessions, 2 keynotes, unique experiences, a sold-out trade show, Green Bus Summit, Transportation Director Summit. So much to do it. It's going to be a unique experience you will not forget. So make sure and join us. You can learn more at stnexpo.com. Guys, stnonline.com, all the information you need about all the great industry coverage, news headlines, blogs, latest and greatest magazines there. We got July issue coming up. If you haven't read June, June is chock full of great info on green energy, so you guys can learn a lot. Be sure you tune into the podcast every week. We've got you covered, nation. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to pods. We love you. We'll see you next week.